Well, the government shutdown is over, and so it's a good time to discuss how that happens and why stuff like that happens. So, with a stroke of the pen, Trump signed the continuing resolution, and the government shutdown is over. So, these things happen because there needs to be a yearly appropriations bill for 12 different appropriations bills that need to pass in order to fund all 12 of the parts of Congress, of congressional spending and funding that the government's required to fund yearly in order to continue growing more debt. So, what happens is if the funding isn't there by September 30th, the uh, parts of the government that are funded through these appropriations processes have to start winding down and shutting down, and so we call it the government shutdown. Congress has arranged it so that not all of government shuts down. As you know, their essential services are kept open, and that essential services are loosely defined as to what services are essential or not. And so we find arguments on both sides of the aisle here about what's essential and not essential. And so things like should we spend money on SNAP benefits happen all the time during these shutdowns, or should we spend money on military during these shutdowns? Should we pay air traffic controllers during these shutdowns? So Trump's point of view on all of this was shut it all down until the um, budget or the continuing resolution passes. So as soon as the shutdown happened, the rather than try and pass the appropriations bill, what we call the budget, the 12 parts, 12 different appropriations bills that need to be passed to create the budget, Congress completely quit working on it until a continuing resolution would be filed. So a continuing resolution is basically a resolution that says, let's keep the last budget until we finish the new budget, and we keep spending at the same rates as the previous year. In the past, there's been fairly certain agreement that we could just continue do a continuing resolution. The two times that continuing resolutions were not allowed, interestingly, the two longest shutdowns in government history were both Trump times where the government was shut down, and in both times the Democrats were saying our budget the year before is not enough money. Please give us more money than what the budget the year before was, or we're not going to do the continuing resolution. So they want a continuing resolution plus, and that's what happened here. And there's a lot of discussion here about this continuing resolution and whether it should have been passed just by the Republicans. And the Republicans are in charge of all three parts of government. They have the presidency, they have the legislature, they have the courts. Why aren't they just doing everything they need to do? Well, the House did it. So the House is always a majority vote, and the House passed the continuing resolution. And Mike Johnson, the chairman of the House, who's a Republican, basically said, we passed it. Now you guys need to pass it, and we're done negotiating. And he sent all of his people home. He said, we're not negotiating anything but a continuing resolution. If you want to negotiate the budget, let's negotiate the budget after the continuing resolution passed. That makes sense, right? Let's continue spending like we did before and then start working on the budget. Or let's start working on the budget now and leave it shut down. So the Democrats said, we're not going to start working on the budget while it's shut down. We need to pass the continuing resolution because we won't work on the budget. But we also won't pass a continuing resolution unless you add additional appropriations to the continuing resolution that are going to end. So the major one of those, that's the problem here. So everyone needs to understand the major problem here. The major problem that you need to know about here is that with COVID, a lot of trillions of dollars were poured into extra healthcare subsidies, and all of the different healthcare systems were subsidized to make sure that anybody and everybody that got COVID didn't help it spread farther. Well, that didn't work, but didn't help it spread farther. So we over subsidized by trillions of dollars during COVID, and those COVID subsidies were due to run out. When those COVID subsidies ran out, the people that were put on emergency health plans during the COVID subsidies were going to lose all of their health benefits and no longer going to be able to be on Medicaid and Obamacare and all of those things. The majority of those people that were put on emergency health care plans during during this COVID period were illegal immigrants that are here illegally. And so Trump put processes in place to make sure that American citizens continue to have access to health care benefits. But he said, there's no reason now that the emergency is over for us to continue to fully subsidize in the amount of $1.5 trillion a year illegal aliens having COVID type of subsidies to continue their health plans. So we're shutting that down. Well, what the Democrats did is they said they tried to ignore the fact that it was COVID subsidies and tried to make it a permanent part of the budget to add $1.5 million of health benefits for illegal aliens. Okay, illegal immigrants that are here that basically are here not legally. They're breaking the law by being here, and that they need to go home. Is the big opinion there. And one of the ways to motivate these people to go home is to restrict access to jobs and restrict access to government benefits like healthcare and SNAP and all of that. So all of these benefits are quickly being withdrawn. We're closing the border, we're eliminating the benefits, and we're rounding people up that aren't going away willingly and deporting them anyway. So Trump's object here is to get our illegal immigration situation under control. I don't want to go more into that because we're going to deal with that in some other episodes about these current events. We're going to get a lot about what's going on with ICE and all of that. So we're going to deal with that in another episode. This is about this shutdown and what happened. So basically, what happens is there's a thing called the filibuster. I don't know if you fully understand the filibuster, but it basically says we don't want a simple majority running over the federal budget and the federal spending thing. So if anything's going to affect the federal spending, if anything's going to affect the federal spending and budgeting and cost money, we want there to be a supermajority in the Senate. There has to be 60 votes to do that. It's a procedural rule. It's not a law in the Constitution. It's not a law anywhere on the books. It's not constitutional. It's not legal. It's not in the Code of Federal Regulations. So there's nothing saying the Senate has to abide by this rule called the filibuster, where we have to have 60 votes to spend money. But they've always agreed to do that, and neither party really wants to eliminate it, because what if they're not in the majority next time? And so the Republicans don't want to eliminate the filibuster, because if Democrats get in the majority, they're going to, spend trillions of dollars, and Democrats don't want to get rid of the filibuster, because the next time the Republicans get in office, they'll cut all spending and nothing will get spent. And so they're worried about each other. So everybody agrees to this procedural rule called the filibuster. Because the filibuster is in place, it means we needed 60 votes to get there. Republicans have, I believe, 53 votes at this time. Two Democrats from the beginning began voting with Republicans to end this shutdown on day one. That was 55. So we needed 5 Democrats to vote with Republicans to continue spending the amount of money in Biden's last budget. This isn't Trump's first budget. This is Biden's last budget. We needed 5 people to say, let's continue spending the trillions of dollars Biden spent, and shut down the government, because we want more than what was in Biden's budget. So it was a ridiculous proposition. Mike Johnson's position was, well, we passed the continuing resolution. We'll discuss the budget after the continuing resolution passes. We're not negotiating. The Democrats in the Senate threw hissy fits. Some of the Democrats in the House threw hissy fits and trying to blame Republicans for not negotiating. But it's a continuing resolution, which basically means we're going to spend the same amount. We're not negotiating budgets and appropriations. We're negotiating whether or not you're going to sign on to a continuing resolution. It's a yes or no vote. That was the position that remained the position. After 42 days, the Democrat senators said, okay, we'll give up. And 8 of those Democrat senators signed on with the 6 more of the Democrat senators. So 8 total Democrat senators signed on with the Republicans. We got 61 votes to do the continuing resolution, and we get to either pass appropriations bills or go through this again at the end of December. So we have a continuing resolution that's going to get us through the beginning of the new year. It's craziness. So there's no reason not to just agree to continue spending the same way while we're negotiating budgets. That has been, and I'm not, you can look this up, that has been Chuck Schumer's position for over 30 years, that we should always pass continuing resolution. This is the two times he has disagreed with that premise have been the two times that are the longest shutdowns in history, which is in Bush's first term, his first year, and in Bush's second term, his first year. So we've shut down the government twice for the longest time in history under Trump. Both times where there were continuing resolutions on the floor that could have passed while they were negotiating the budget. Democrats held the country hostage. The funny thing I always put on any post to try to blame it on Republicans is that we Republicans don't negotiate with terrorists. If Democrats want to starve your children, I guess that's okay, but we don't negotiate with terrorists. And so we weren't going to negotiate. This continuing resolution had to pass. It did pass. Thank goodness the government's back open. Hopefully the airports and everybody, it's going to be a transition to get everything back open where it's going, but I'm glad it is, and hopefully we continue to move forward and get the appropriations bill. So we have a 2025-26 budget that goes from October 1st to September 30th. Hopefully we have a budget in place for the next year before we get to next September 30th, and don't do continuing resolutions cycle after cycle after cycle. We should just learn to budget, and we should learn to budget appropriately so that we don't continue going trillions of dollars in debts. All the presidents have been bad at this. Reagan was the first, and every president since Reagan's been bad at this, and the government debt just continues to skyrocket. Hopefully they get it under control. I don't trust anybody to get under control, not even Trump, even though I love what Trump has done. He's not going to get it under control. But hopefully we, at the very least, get a budget in place for the federal government. It's ridiculous that these guys that are professionals of this can't get a budget done before September 30th. From the time Trump got in office to on January 20th till September 30th, they could have gotten a budget together that everybody could agree on. It's stupid that they can't. So we'll keep fighting the good fight, and that's what happened with the shutdown, and I'm very, very glad it's over.